Hi, I'm Ash, and welcome back to the channel. I have a camera now, and I don't want to talk about it. Today, we're going to be going into the Over the Wire Bandit series, and we're going to be continuing from level 25 to level 29. If you've been enjoying the series thus far, please let me know. If you have any feedback, I would love to hear you. Okay, with that all being said, leave a like, subscribe, and let's get into it. The first thing, we're just going to SSH into it like we usually do, slap in the password, and let's read our level goal. So a Damien, however you say it, is a process running in the background. So there's something listening on port 30,002, and we'll give you the password for Bandit 25 if the given password for Bandit 24 and a secret numeric 4-digit PIN code. There is no way to retrieve the PIN code except by going through all 10,000 combinations called brute forcing. Whoa. So I've done a little bit of brute forcing, but we don't have any of those commands. Like there's no tools here listed like hashcat or like John the Ripper, which are for like passwords and hashing. So we're not going into that. So it leads me to think we're going to have to write something our own because we've had to do a little bit of shell scripting. So let's see what we can see. So there's nothing in our directory. So let's use netcat like we've been doing, going to the machine on localhost, but this time 30,002. I am the PIN code checker for user Bandit25. Please enter the password for user Bandit24 and the secret PIN code on a single line, separated by a space. Okay, so we enter it like so, followed by a space and then the 4-digit PIN code. Oh, and I was too slow. Let's try that again. Paste 0000 and wrong. So we don't have an interactive shell, 000, wrong, and so on and so forth. Okay, so we need to figure out something to automate this process. Since we're going to be creating files, we don't have permissions to do it in our home directory. Let's go over to the temporary. So let's just make a folder in there and cd into it, and let's just create a file and open it in a text editor. Okay, so we need this to automate the process. So first thing, it needs to be a bash script or shell script, and what we're doing is putting something into the standard input. So the tool that we can use is echo. So we want to go and save that off. We're just going to do a test run before we get any further into it. Make sure we modify the permissions and we make it executable, and we also need to give it a shell. I think you have to give it a set, so we'll just move that file and then rename it with a .sh on the end. All right, so there is our shell script. So just cut it out, make sure it is what it is, and then we can execute it so have a simple working shell script. So we can do a couple things here to test it over netcat. So we can try this, directing the shell script as input. And the thing here is it's interpreting, like, I think what's happening is it's interpreting every line, like literally. So that line failed, this line failed. So we've got a reaction that we're after. So piping in this way probably isn't going to work then. But if we open it back up, what we could try, since it's just like, we're going to write it, so we can use pipe. So we echo that and pipe it through. So let's try it this way. Okay, so that works better having the shell script include netcat, where it's not interpreting every line. Instead, it runs it and then pipes it through. Okay, which takes us to our next problem, because we can't just write this out again and again and again 10,000 times. So we need to use some sort of loop to do this. So we'll use a for loop, which we need an iterator, which I'll just use I. So that's going to be 0000001. That's going to be what iterates through. And I had to look this up, but what we can do is actually specify, and it's pretty cool because I thought it would be way more complicated. 00002, I think it's 3 dots, 9999. So then we can remove our pin and just put in the iterator, which starts at 0000, and then we'll go up all the way till 99999. And it can't be 10,000. I may or may not have tried 10,000. It gave me a very big error, which was very frustrating. So we don't want it to connect to netcat in the loop 10,000 times. We want it to run through, find everything, and then pass that through. I do just want to test, because I'm just looking up different syntax, getting a bit confused. I don't know exactly, because the versions have changed. So we might not need to do this extra syntax. But let's just run a test. Instead of doing all 10,000, let's just do 0010, so we'll just do a test. All right, let's see if this works. So, all right, let's run our new scripts, and we've got some syntax errors, which is what I was afraid of. Okay, silly me. I just forgot the actual N for I in. And once we run that, we actually get 11 attempts. So 0, 0, 0, 0 up until 0, 0, 1, 0. So just quick explaining what's happening if you're unclear, but if you totally get it, just skip ahead. So we are running a for loop, which is using this iterator to go through these series of integers that we've given it. We're echoing out, we're sending the password like we're supposed to, and this variable gets carried over here and changes on each iteration as we go through. It iterates over that the set amount of times, which in this case it's 11. Then it finishes and sends that through to connect line by line to netcat, which then gives us our output, which is currently wrong. So this is good, we can scale this up. So the current issue with this, however, is we're gonna have 10,000 results. So change that over to 9999, and we need to figure out a way of getting this out to something. So why not we just redirect this to just a text file. All right, let's see how that goes. So we'll hit run. That was pretty fast. If we just list out what we've got, now there's a text file. It has data, 53 kilobytes at 1,030 lines. Okay, so it's somewhere now outputted into this file, and we can just further check if we just run the head command against it. Just gives us the first part. It's definitely in there, and it's a lot longer. So we could cap this out and manually scroll through, but we're better than that. We're gonna pipe that through grep. We need a search term, so it might be win. I know what it is. It might be Bandit 25, and there we go. We've got it. We'll save that off, exit out, and we'll head on to the next level. All right, awesome. Let's go on with Bandit level 26, and our level goal, logging into Bandit 26 from Bandit 25, should be fairly easy. The shell for the user Bandit 26 is not bin bash, but something else. Find out what it is, how it works, and how to break out of it. This is not easy, okay? I'm just gonna give you a warning, if you haven't gathered already, that I have actually gone through these levels. Usually I don't, but I struggled so much with these, I had to just do it off camera. All right, this did my head in, and all right, let's go through. So let's have a look at what we've got. Okay, so we have a bandit 26.ssh key. So this is the first thing. So they've told us it's an SSH key, and we can run file against it, and it's definitely a private key. So let's try and use it, -I, and including that file. And we want to try and log in as Ben26 to get to the next level on localhost and the port that SSH is open. Okay, so yes, we connect, we lose connection. So this is what's so tricky. We connect right here, sends us a nice little message, and then connection's lost. Let's dig into the user Bandit 26 a bit more. So there's a few ways of doing this. We can look at like the home folder, see if we can see anything. So looking there, they've got some files that Bandit 26 can access, but we can't touch as Bandit 25. So we can't even read it or anything. So that's not gonna help us. Next, there's a file we can look at which tells us about passwords, home folders, and other things like shells. So the hint we've got is the shell for the user Bandit 26 is not bin bash, something else. We need to figure out what that is. So we can look in the passwd or password file, and we can get all this information of different users, right? User, hashed secret password, their ID, I think group, their home folder, and then the shell that they use, right? So usually it's bin bash. Let's run that again, but grep Bandit 26 this time. Remember that last one here was the shell that they use. So we've got user bin bash show text. So if we run that via cat and have a look at what's going on, so it's saying run this shell, export term Linux, I think that's an environment variable, and then it uses execute / home folder of txt. Very confusing. Let's sort of look into this. Now we actually did see this text file in the home folder of Bandit 26, and since this is supposed to be run by Bandit 26, it runs that text file. Okay, we can't see what it is, but we can look into more which is the command that they actually recommend in here. So if we look at the man for more, file pursual filter for CRT viewing. More is filter for paging through text one screenful at a time. Very confusing language, but we're actually in what it's describing. Like right now, when we have a man page, this is the sort of view that it's giving us. That's what it's trying to say, like one screenful. We're looking at a screenful and we're able to interact with it. So that's sort of what more is doing. So if we look at an example of more and we just run it against a big file like etc password, remember how we saw it in cat where, it just cats it out to the terminal and we get our terminal back, but more, as you can see, now I'm using my directional arrows and I'm scrolling up and down a screen full at a time. So that's what it's trying to say. And this is where it's so tricky. And honestly, I had to look up a walkthrough, if I'm being completely honest, is once you get to the end of it, you don't get that screen full thing one more at a time. Why that's important, because if we run more against this bash shell, rather, it doesn't go into more, right? So it's not actually doing the thing because the screen full is already big enough. So this is extremely creative. I'll be honest, probably would have never figured this out if I didn't. We need to actually shrink the terminal so that more is engaged. Now, if we run that, we're actually in more, like we're seeing it a screenful at a time. Now, this is where it gets really tricky. With our tiny little terminal, let's SSH again. So like we were already doing, using the public key that's being provided to us, going into Bandit 26 on our port, and because the bash script is set to actually run more command, like we saw, because we could at least access that, we're actually, as the user, we're in that right now, and we can see this text file that it was talking about. It's running this text file. This is where it gets really hard, because it's like if you open that terminal or you start looking down, it ends the shell, it's done. So you just lose connection like we were seeing before. So every time we run this with a bigger terminal, it'll just give us exactly what we have. So how do we sort of get out of it? If we look at our man page for more, the more command has a bunch of interactive commands inside it that are based on VI. VI is a text editor with more commands inside it. So one in particular command, start up an editor at the current line. We can go from more, because we can get into that shell, and using the V command, we can get over to VI or VI. So with our small terminal, let's SSH back in, hit V, and now we're in VI, we can now execute some stuff. So using the colon, we can run some things using E, like we can look directly in Bandit pass, for example, because remember, we are currently in as Bandit 26. Okay, so there's our flag. So there's one way. Hit semicolon Q. Sometimes it's Q, sometimes it's A, and sometimes it's, I'm never fully sure. But that's how we get out. But what we can also do is run set, which is another thing, and we can actually change the shell. So we can run set shell equals bin bash, and now we're telling the shell to switch, enter, colon again, and then just run shell, and we actually get in. So now we've got access to a shell as Bandit 26 with full access. We've got the password already, and if you didn't get that, remember it's located under the Bandit pass. So before we go exiting like we usually do, if we go over to Bandit 27, it says good job getting a shell. Now hurry up and grab the password for 27. So it's just telling us to list out what's already here, and if you've already noticed, we've got another set UID like we had in an earlier level. So remember, running a set UID is like the whole shell and everything as another user, the whole binaries and everything, I think. So we can use that to like look inside their own folder, for example, or if there's nothing there, cat out where we know there are other passwords like Bandit 27. So definitely save that off while we're there. So it's a lot shorter of a level, but it's a nice little one there. Trick, can you get out of I? Can you get out of him? Now we use :QA and then get back to your original shell that you were in as Bandit 25, exit out of that. And now we're using Bandit 27 to go and tackle level 28. So level 28, there is a Git repo. All right, now we're changing it up a little bit. SSH Bandit 27 and the password for the user Bandit 27-git is the same as a user for Bandit 27. Clone the repo and find the password. Okay, so I've used Git a little bit, never locally. I only ever use Git with GitHub over HTTPS, so this is new. So first thing, have we got Git installed? Okay, we're seeing a page full of Git, so great, it's there. Not that we could install it because we don't have permissions to do so. So Git comes with a bunch of different commands. So I'm learning this along with you. There's Git clone, okay, and we've got clone the repo and then find the password. So usually I'm used to HTTPS here. We're cloning via SSH. So we'll try and enter that, and we've got a permission denied. The thing is, our SSH is on a different port that we can access, right? So usually SSH is done over 22 by default. If this was like our usual SSH command, we would run like, -p, and but that's just not how it's done. So in the case of SSH for Git, we put a colon after the domain that we're going through, or the host, and then we put the port. So let's go ahead and try that. So after our local host, there we want to go colon, and 22 is default, but we don't use 22, we use 2220 for this, get rid of the other stuff, and we still have an issue. I remember. We don't have permissions to create directories here. So that's could not create work tree directory. So not permission denied to what we're trying to copy, permission denied to where we are. Should probably read what our terminal actually says. Let's go ahead and make a directory over in our temporary folder, and then we'll just cd into that temporary folder. Then we can just run that command again, and we'll actually get access. So remember, at the password, as I said, it's the same for Bandit 27. So not throwing more complexities on us just yet. Great, so that's all copied. So if we ls, we now see a repo. Great. So looking inside that repo, we've got a .git, so a hidden Git repo. So that's where all the config and that goes for this Git repo. But we have a README. So if we cat that out, it's just giving us the password, nice and simple. I like it. We'll exit out, go into Bandit 28 for the level 29. Okay, so our goal again, so another Git repo, this time for Bandit 28 user Git. The password for the user Bandit 28 is the same, so same, clone the repo and find the password. Okay, so it's pretty much identical. So again, make a directory. The ones we're in there, let's SSH clone, paste that in, and then change the port like last time. Couldn't resolve hostname clone, temporary failure in name resolution. Because I've gone SSH clone SSH, git clone. That's better. Paste in the password, and we can see here, it's copied everything. Okay, so if we list that out, we've got the repo again. So let's go into that repo. We've got our README. Cool, so it should be the same as last time, right? Bandit 29, password is not there. Okay, so since we're dealing with Git, there are a few things that Git can do. So we just run Git. This is one of those, I don't know if there's a name for these sort of commands where it's just like you've got the main command Git, and then you've got like the sub commands clone init. So we use Git clone already. If you're setting up a new repo, set up Git init. So, and if I probably should explain this, if you're not familiar with Git, it's called version control. So it's just a way of, syncing files. Like I always like it. It's like a much more like a lot better version of like a OneDrive or a Google Drive. And that's, how do developers all writing the same code, the same programs, how do they stay all on the same page? Git. And now Git, has become GitHub and GitLabs, and there's all these different companies that, have built social platforms or online platforms around Git. So we basically want to see some sort of record of what's gone on in this repo before we've gone and got our own copy. So here we've got logs, right? Logs are like records. So let's just go git logs, log rather. And now we've got a bit of a list of what's going on. So we've got the initial commit, and this is like the ID of this commit. Who did it, when it happened, and what exactly happened. And then somebody else has come in, they've got a copy, they've updated it, and then they've added some missing data. And now we're at the master, that what we've got, what we can see, and fixed info leak. So Let's see. So if we copy the ID, we can just go git show and then paste that in, and that'll show the current versions of the files. In this case, readme, and we can see here that's different, right? It was like a bunch of X's when we first looked at it. So the next one was adding missing data. So if we go git show and have a look at that, here is what it was, and here is what the user updated as, and we've got our password. But yeah, and then out of interest, we can look at that last commit, and I mean, you should know where this is going. If we look at that last commit, they've changed it from the password to what we got as the master, hence the most up to date and what we got. And now we can see the version, we got the password. So cool, let's go on. Great, so we can exit out, and that'll do us for this video. That was Bandit levels 25 through to 29. Make sure you subscribe because I will be doing the last levels, and yeah, if you want to stick around, that would be great. There'll be a card up on the screen so you can go watch the previous Bandit series if you would like. Otherwise, I'm gonna let YouTube recommend a good video for you coming up, and yeah, stick around. It'd be great if you could. Awesome, this was fun. I'll see you in the next one.